So here we've got a Seiko SNZF11K, or you can also get them in variations of the 13K or the 19K. This is kind of known as the SNZF series, and they're best known because they look like the pretty famous Seiko Monster series, which is why they've gotten several nicknames, including the Mini Monster, the Monster Lite, and the Neo Monster. If you own a Monster, you'll see the resemblance, even though it's called a Monster Lite or a Mini Monster. You'll notice that it's not small at all. So this currently is only available in the eastern part of the world. So if you do want one and you are in the States, you're probably going to buy it used, which is how I got this one. Just really love the blue face, and I already had a dive watch, so I didn't really need a actual Monster, and so I purchased this on eBay. So it's good to know right off the bat that this is a style watch. It's not an actual dive watch. There's several differences between this one and the actual Monster series that make it into a more fashion or style-based watch, and most importantly is the fact that it just doesn't have that much in terms of water resistance. It's only 100 meters compared to 200, so you probably wouldn't want to do much more than just swimming with it or washing dishes and that sort of thing. But that being said, it is actually quite a nice watch, especially for the price. You can get them about $200 US, maybe cheaper, depending on how used it is and where you purchase it and who's selling. It uses an in-house Seiko Movement, the 7S36B. It's a 23 jeweled movement, and it's non-hacking. I'm going to get it spinning here. You see that it doesn't have an exhibition case back, so you can see the movement. Of course, it's not decorated, which you probably wouldn't expect from a Seiko watch, especially of this kind of lower price range. That doesn't mean it's not a good movement. Get it going. The hands, the movement is about 6 beats per second, so it does kind of a nice sweeping motion. Certainly not going to be the smoothest motion you've ever seen, but certainly pretty good. It's rated for about plus minus 40 seconds a day, which doesn't sound all that great, but is about what you'd expect from a Seiko watch. In terms of the actual, what I've experienced, it's not that bad. It's about 10-12 seconds a day. So they tend to, Seiko in general, for whatever reason, seems to be pretty generous in their ratings. I always find that they're quite a bit more accurate than they're supposedly supposed to be. It's got a 42-hour power reserve. It's got a rotating bezel, like most dive style watches. It's 120 clicks, so it's pretty accurate. It feels pretty good. Seems like it's pretty well crafted. I think my biggest complaint about this watch in general, in terms of the fit and finish, is just you can kind of jiggle this bezel a little bit before actually moving to the next one, which certainly isn't something that you would experience with an actual Monster or some higher quality or a lot of other dive watches. There isn't this kind of play here. The loom is decent. It's the Lumabrite. So most Seikos, especially the Seiko 5s, have pretty good loom. This isn't quite as good as the Monster, but it's definitely better than a lot of affordable watches. And it does have a day-date indicator, you'll see, which kind of has a nice accent to it. In terms of overall design, the hands have a very cool-looking spear style to them. Kind of in some ways remind me of like a Planet Ocean, with kind of their own twist on it, which is cool. You'll see the day-date kind of has a little accent on it, and in general the face has multicolors and multi-dimension. I think that's one of the things I love most about it. Kind of the black and white around the minutes and hours. It's an overlaid minute hand, so it does create some kind of depth. And then of course the hands themselves, and even though the Seiko logo is an overlaid metallic logo, which looks really cool. And their overall style is kind of a classic Seiko dive style, which I really like. The bezel has engraved painted numbers, and it's a very sporty looking watch. It's quite thick. It's a stainless steel case, which is 42.5 millimeters wide. It's actually deceptively wide because the face looks pretty small, but actually the outer bezel is pretty big. It's 13 millimeters thick, so it does actually sit pretty high off the wrist. It does end up looking like a really beefy, kind of cool dive watch. I'll put it on my wrist so you can get some sense as to what it looks like. So you'll notice that's pretty thick. It's pretty high up, so if you have to wear a dress shirt, this might be a little too thick for what you're looking for. If you're looking for a sport watch or dive style watch, then it's right up your alley. And as I've demonstrated a little bit, it does have the exhibition case back, which is, you know, fun to look at. Non-decorated, but certainly fun to show your friends, especially if they only have quartz watches. The bracelet actually is pretty impressive. You know, for a cheap watch, usually this is where a lot of companies will skimp. You'll notice that it is a solid link, so it's not folded. It's an oyster style. And in terms of gaps in the bracelet, you know, of course there are some, that's to be expected, but they're not huge, and they're pretty consistent. It's a bit of a noisy bracelet, but, you know, what can you expect? You can kind of hear it rattling a little bit, but what can you expect for a couple $100? It's actually really comfortable, which is why I like it. I'm not a huge fan of bracelets. I usually like leather, even on sporty watches. Dive watches I prefer, like a NATO or a Zulu. But it's actually really comfortable. I actually quite like it. It's a standard folding clasp. It doesn't have the adjustment for a dive suit like the actual monsters, which is kind of another reason that that it's not an actual dive watch, but it does have a security button, which is cool. So there is something to be said about that. Not all affordable watches have that, and it does have micro adjustments as well. The other great thing about this is it does have solid end links, which really kind of adds to how the bracelet feels and the watch feels on your wrist. It feels a lot more solid. You can see that it does have Seiko engraved here, stamped on there. The crown is not screw down, another reason that it's not an actual dive watch, but it's a cool design. It doesn't have the logo on it like many watches does, but it feels nice to use. You know, which is one of the indicators of quality. You know, when you're setting the watch, it has some nice resistance and good feedback. Same with the day date. You're setting. Overall, it's a really good deal, really good value, especially if you're looking for a nice fashion watch that looks high quality, feels high quality, but don't want to spend upwards of $500 or $1,000. For a couple $100, you get a really nice looking, quite beautiful watch. It's comfortable, has, you know, one of the best clasps that I've come across for the price range, and bracelet too. So really worth adding to your collection if you're an affordable watch collector. I really enjoy it.